This is my first video update coming to you from Napa, Cyprus on this Sunday morning. Let's do a quick video and talk about some news. And let's do an update on the grain deal that Russia has now pulled out of. And we have statements from Joe Biden, what he thinks about this Russian pullout from the grain deal. But just to recap as to what is going on, the uh, the Russian Federation, they have decided to pull out of the grain deal that they brokered with the UN, Turkey, and Ukraine in order to get grain out of Ukraine, out of the Odessa ports. And supposedly, this grain was going to go to help poorer countries, to help them so that they wouldn't have any food shortages. And that's not really the case. That's not what's happened. But that was the premise of the grain deal. To get the grain out of Ukraine safely, Russia would guarantee the safe passage of the ships leaving the ports in the Black Sea. And after the weekend terror attack in Sevastopol, which was repelled, this terror attack by Ukrainian drones, with, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, with the help of the British. Well, Russia has decided to pull out of the grain deal. In other words, the Russian Federation, according to the Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Defense, they have come out with statements saying that they simply cannot guarantee the safety of ships, cargo ships leaving the ports and making their way out of the Black Sea, because Ukrainian drones, once again, allegedly with the help of the British, are attacking those ships. And over the weekend, the Ministry of Defense also let the world know that they believe they have the evidence, they have the receipts that aside from the British helping out the uh, the Ukraine military to prepare these attacks on these ships in Sevastopol, that it was the British that were also the ones behind the sabotage of Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. This is the claim from the Russian Ministry of Defense, and actually the Russian Foreign Affairs, the Foreign Ministry. They came out with a statement also confirming that they have the evidence, they have the information that shows it was indeed the British that were behind these these sabotage attacks on the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. Now, the UK Ministry of Defense, they came out with a tweet yesterday and they denied these Russian claims, and they actually said in the tweet that Russia is using this as an excuse, as a distraction from the way the war is going in Ukraine. In other words, the Ministry of Defense in the UK said that the war is going so badly in in Ukraine that Russia is they're concocting this British Nord Stream sabotage story in order to distract away from the failed military operation. Anyway, here's what Biden said when he was speaking to reporters over the weekend, and they asked him about the uh, the fact that Russia is pulling out of the grain deal. Biden said, and I quote, "It's purely outrageous. It's going to increase starvation. There's no merit to what they're doing. The UN negotiated that deal, and that should be the end of it." So for Biden, it doesn't matter if Russia is unable to guarantee the safety of these cargo ships. It doesn't matter if Ukraine, with allegedly the help of the British, attack these cargo ships. Russia should continue to provide safe passage of these cargo ships out of the Black Sea, even if they are getting attacked by the Ukraine military and by Ukraine drones. prepared by the British military, planned and prepared for by the British military. Now, there's video all over the interwebs, specifically Telegram, a lot of video actually showing the Ukraine drones making their way to attack these ships in Sevastopol. And there are a lot of blue check marks as well from both sides, from the Russian side, from the Ukrainian side, from the collective West, which confirm the drone attack or the prepared drone attack against these Russian ships. So there's a lot of cheerleaders as well on the collective West and the Ukraine side of things, saying that the drones actually did manage to hit some ships, and though this was mostly repelled, this was a good attack on these Russian ships. So the evidence is out there that this attack in Sevastopol absolutely occurred. Now, we haven't seen the evidence with regards to Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, but the fact that the Russian Foreign Ministry now has also come out with statements saying that the British were indeed behind the sabotage of the pipelines, well, that's not a good sign for the UK, but we're still going to have to wait and see if the Russian Federation does decide to release some more info on the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 sabotage by the UK. Now, let's get into some more details as to what is going on with Russia pulling out of the grain deal. And the Russians, what they are saying is that, and let me pull it up here, the Foreign Ministry, what they're saying is that on October 29th, the Ukrainian armed forces, under the cover of a humanitarian corridor created as part of the implementation of the Black Sea Initiative to export Ukrainian agricultural products, launched massive air and sea strikes using unmanned aerial vehicles against ships and infrastructure of the Russian Black Sea Fleet at the naval base in Sevastopol. In connection with the actions of the Ukrainian armed forces led by British specialists, directed, among other things, against Russian ships that ensure the functioning of the specified humanitarian corridor, which cannot be qualified otherwise than a terrorist attack, the Russian side cannot guarantee the safety of civilian dry cargo ships participating in the Black Sea Initiative, and suspends its implementation from today of an indefinite period. Corresponding instructions were given to Russian representatives at the Joint Coordination Center in Istanbul, which controls the transportation of Ukrainian food. That is the statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry. And the Russian Foreign Ministry, they also said, they were busy yesterday, the Russian Foreign Ministry, they said that Russia, and this is with regards to Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, that Russia has repeatedly called for a joint investigation of these terror attacks on Nord Stream. Relevant proposals were sent to the governments of Denmark, Sweden, and Germany. The fact that Western countries refused this proposal confirms that they have something to hide. Now we understand what exactly they hide. So two pretty bold and damning statements from the Russian Foreign Ministry. Now, the UK Defense Ministry, let me read you what they said, exactly what they said in their tweet. They said that Moscow is resorting to peddling false claims of an epic scale in an effort to distract the global community from their disastrous handling of the illegal invasion of Ukraine. This invented story says more about arguments going on inside the Russian government than it does about the West. Interesting statement. Very interesting statement from the UK Ministry, UK Defense Ministry. You can see in that last line, this invented story says more about arguments going on inside the Russian government than it does about the West. You can see that they really want to see the Kremlin shatter, like the Kremlin to just plunge into disarray for some sort of regime change, you know? You can really sense that in this statement that they're still committed to this narrative that if they push Russia hard enough, if they provoke hard enough, that they're going to eventually get the power structure in the Kremlin to crack. It's there. I mean, they're saying it. That is what the UK Ministry of Defence said. Do they deny it? Is this an outright denial of the claims from the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Foreign Ministry? I'm reading through this. Let me know what you think in the comments down below to what the UK Defense Ministry said. That Moscow is resorting to peddling false claims of an epic scale in an effort to distract the global community from their disastrous handling of the illegal invasion of Ukraine. I would have been more convinced if the UK Defense Ministry said something along the lines of, first of all, instead of sending a tweet, I think they should have probably come out with a more concrete statement, kind of saying something like, you know, we've got the evidence to show that we're not behind this. We've had nothing to do with the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 attack. This is these are the receipts. This is our evidence. This shows that we've had no military troops anywhere near that area, and we condemn these claims from Russia. They're 100% false. We would never do such a thing to our allies and our friends in Germany. I would be more convinced if it was something along those lines. But instead, they're trying to talk about disarray in the Kremlin and that this is a distraction from the narrative that Russia's losing the war. You know, they're still sticking to their propaganda, their talking points about Russia's losing the war, so this is a distraction, and Putin's government is about to collapse, so this is a distraction. I don't know. I'm not so convinced with that statement from the UK Defense Ministry, but let me know what you think. Let me know how you see that statement in the form of a tweet from the UK Defense Ministry. Even Biden's statement was not very convincing either. Biden's statement was not very convincing as to the Russian claims. I wonder what the U.S. knows. Anyway, commenting on Russia's decision to suspend the grain deal, Andrei Yermak, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's chief of staff, accused Moscow of blackmail. Russian blackmail is primitive across the board. Blackmail in nuclear, energy, and food field, he stated, adding that all supposed Russian ploys are too simple and predictable. All right. On Saturday, Russia's agricultural minister, Dmitry Patrushev, signaled that Moscow is ready, with Turkey's help, to send the world's poorest countries up to 500,000 tons of grain within the next 4 months. He noted that considering this year's harvest, Russia is fully ready to replace Ukrainian grain and arrange deliveries to all interested countries at a reasonable price. The grain deal not only did it not solve the problems of countries in need, but even aggravated them in a sense. We can see where the ships from Ukraine were heading, Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands. For some cargoes, the share of EU countries ranges from 60 to 100%. These are not the states that are experiencing a real food problem. Now, I've heard the same thing, that I've heard anywhere between 40 to 80% of the grain that was leaving these ports and should have been sent to the countries, the poorest countries that are in need of this grain, this was actually being sent. 40 to 80% of this grain was actually being shipped to EU countries. And Russia actually made this claim many, many times. Actually, I believe Putin actually said this during a speech or during some sort of forum event. He said that the grain should be going to the poorest countries, but this grain is actually going to the richest countries. So this is going to have a huge effect. The fact that you can't get this grain out of Ukraine is going to have a huge effect on the EU and on food supply and food prices in the European Union. Boy, oh boy, did just when you think the EU just can't get into more trouble, here we go. Now we're going to be looking at some food difficulties with this latest stunt that Ukraine tried to pull in Sevastopol. Maybe that's the point of all of this. Maybe the point to all of this was for the UK, allegedly the UK, maybe the US, definitely Ukraine. Maybe the point of all of this was to punish the European Union and to say, you know what, if this drone attack succeeds, great, good for us, Ukraine. If this drone attack doesn't succeed and the Russians repel it, well, we still get to punish the European Union because Russia will most certainly pull out of the grain deal. At least that's the hope. And the European Union is going to suffer some more. Maybe that was the whole point of it. And of course, the United States can use the soft media power to say that this is, a Russian distraction and the Russians are just trying to blackmail the EU and all of this stuff. So they could use their soft media power to fool their populations into thinking that all of this that happened, the attack on these cargo ships, was just another Russian ploy to exert more leverage on the collective West. This time in the form of food. Now, Putin also said a couple of weeks ago with the attack on the Kerch Bridge in Crimea, he actually said that if the Russians find evidence that explosives were being shipped from Odessa to various terrorist groups or military forces to attack Russian infrastructure like the Kerch Bridge, if they were to find evidence of weapons and explosives actually making their way to Odessa, that Russia would pull out of the grain deal. So Putin also warned about this. He was connecting it to the Kerch Bridge, but he did say if we find more evidence of terrorist attacks, we're out of the grain deal. And well, they're out of the grain deal. So that is what is going on with Russia pulling out of the grain deal. This is going to hurt the European Union. Once again, the big loser in all of this is going to be the people of the European Union. And the cynical, the suspicious side of me thinks that maybe that was the plan all along with this attack. I'm not saying that's what actually happened, but who knows? Maybe the conspiracy side of me is thinking that. You got to keep on dismantling and destroying the European Union, I guess. I guess that's the plan. Either way, the EU is going to be the big loser in this. Let's talk about this story with regards to the Russian foreign currency reserves. I think this is an interesting story, and I'll do this story, then I'll wrap it up with a couple of clown worlds, actually. And so we have one of these EU officials. I forgot what this guy's title is. Let me see here if I can find this article to figure out what this dude's title is. Here we go. So this guy, his name is Didier Renders, and he is the European Union Commissioner for Justice. All right. The European Union Commissioner for Justice on Saturday, he said that the Russian foreign currency reserves that have been frozen by the European Union, and the foreign currency reserves which Ursula van der Crazy / van der Pirate, the foreign currency reserves that she said need to be seized, not freeze. We shouldn't freeze these foreign currency reserves, but we should seize them. Remember that statement she made a couple of days ago? Well, this EU kleptocrat, this EU pirate, he is saying that these reserves, he's pegging them at $299 billion, 300 billion euros. He is saying that these should be used as a guarantee against Russia, so that Russia actually flips the bill for the reconstruction of Ukraine. So they should hold these currency reserves as some sort of a guarantee, some sort of collateral or something like that, to make sure that Russia, when all is said and done, actually pays for the reconstruction of Ukraine. If you go by what the Ukrainian, what Kaluba, the foreign minister of Ukraine, just said, what I read you out like 5 minutes ago, and he's saying that Russia is constantly blackmailing the collective West. Well, if you go by his standards, I would say that this EU official is trying to blackmail Russia, right? That's what it looks like. But let me get you his quote here. He said that from my point of view, it is at least possible to keep the 300 billion euros as a guarantee until Russia voluntarily participates in the reconstruction of Ukraine. Yeah, all right. Blackmail. Blackmail. But this is also a change of position. Look at how windy it is, by the way. I hope this video turns out all right. It's a big change of position because in the previous months, what the European Union was saying is that Russia is going to lose this war. No doubt about it. They're going to lose this war. And it's going to be the European Union that is going to reconstruct Ukraine. And we're going to do it by stealing this 300 billion. And we're going to find the legal mechanisms to confiscate this money. They're just trying to figure out all the legal loopholes to steal this money. Remember what Ursula said? We believe in the rule of law, so that is why we're going to get our lawyers on this case to figure out a way to justify the seizure of this 300 billion according to the European Union's rule of law. But now you see this statement from the EU, and they're saying, from this EU commissioner at least, and he's saying, well, you know, we should use this 300 billion as a guarantee so that Russia actually comes in and participates in the reconstruction of Ukraine. I wonder if the EU is having second thoughts about seizing this money. I wonder if they're looking at Vander Crazy, some of these EU officials and these EU lawyers are looking at her and saying, stealing this money, it's not a good idea. That is not going to look good for the European Union on multiple levels. It's not going to build trust in our financial system and reputation if we start stealing foreign currency reserves and assets. So I wonder if they're trying to walk back, or if they've had a second opinion on what Ursula said a couple of days ago. But definitely, you can see a change in stance from this EU official, and you can also see a bit of blackmail there. It's really interesting that they always say that Russia is blackmailing the collective West, right? Russia's now going to be blackmailing the collective West with regards to food. That's going to be the new narrative, and it's going to be Russia's fault when the EU is having price spikes in food and food shortages and stuff like that. Russia has said, by the way, that they've got 500,000 tons of grain ready to send to countries. Actually, Putin even hinted that some of it he'll give away for free. But this is going to go to friendly nations, to friendly countries. And it's going to go to the poorer countries that need Russia's help, not the European Union. But they always say Russia is at fault, right? Russia's going to be at fault for the food shortages. Russia's at fault for the energy crisis. Well, who decided to attack the cargo ships in Sevastopol? Who decided to do that? Ukraine, the collective West, perhaps the British. They're the ones that decided to attack these ships. Who decided to freeze the Russian assets? The European Union. Who decided to place sanctions on Russian commodities and Russian products and services? The European Union. They're the ones that did it. It's Russia that had to resort to gas for rubles because it was the only way that they could get paid. They're the ones that had to resort to these mechanisms. Otherwise, if they kept their money in EU banks, well, that money was going to get seized. So that was the European Union that did that, not Russia. Who were the ones that blew up Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2? I don't think it was the Russians. I don't think they were the ones that blew up those pipelines and severed Germany from its main gas supply, gas infrastructure. But yet they blame Russia. So like everything that they've done to bring about their own demise, they project onto Russia. They're the ones that that have caused this crisis. The European Union, the collective West, they're doing it all to themselves. And they sit there and they say that it's the Russians that are blackmailing us. It really is victim mentality, isn't it? And a lack of accountability. The collective West leadership, they're not accountable for any of their actions. And what they do is they play the victim and they blame someone else. It really is representative of the cancel culture, woke ideology that we see in the collective West. It's our leadership in the collective West that is pushing this ideology. They're the ones that feel like they're victims and have no responsibility for their actions and no accountability for their actions, and it trickles down to the people, right? The leadership is doing this, and so you see much of the collective West having this type of attitude. I'm not accountable for anything. I'm not responsible for anything. I'm a victim. That's the collective West leadership right now. That is exactly what they're doing with Russia. We're going to sanction you, and we're going to make sure that no gas and no oil can come into the European Union, but you're at fault. You're blackmailing us, and you're at fault because we have no gas and no oil. It's your fault, even though we're the ones sanctioning you. Or we're going to blow apart pipelines, and we're going to attack cargo ships with food. We're going to attack all that stuff, and we're going to blow up all that stuff, and we're going to make it impossible for you to ship your grain to us, and then you're going to be at fault. And you're going to be the one blackmailing us when you come out and say, well, we can't provide grain to you because you attacked us. It's going to be your fault. Anyway, I thought I would throw that out there. Let's do a couple of clown worlds. Let's talk about some clownish things going on in the world. I saw a couple of stories in the UK media saying that citizens in the UK are not able to buy basic hygienic products, like just basic stuff for good hygiene. And so they're not going out, or they don't want to interact with other people because they're trying to cut back on some of the costs that they have to incur. And one of the things that they're cutting back on is hygiene. I don't know how true this is. This is coming from the UK media. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see some of these stories, some of these headlines. So I don't know how true that is. But here's a story that is true. PayPal is reinstating their $2,500 misinformation penalty. But so they put this in their terms and conditions. Then they retracted it because there was a huge uproar. And now it looks like they're putting it back in. But this time they're going to take out the term of misinformation for news. It looks like they're removing that one term, but they're still going to put a $2,500 fine every time someone violates their terms of service with transgressions as vague as publishing harmful, obscene, harassing, and objectionable messages. So they removed the misinformation, so you're not going to get fined if you spread misinformation, but you can get a $2,500 fine if you publish harmful, obscene, harassing, or objectionable messages. What any of that has to do with a payment provider sending messages which are, according to PayPal, harmful or objectionable, I don't know what that has to do with a financial institution and why they have to steal $2,500 from you. But you see how they did that? They wrote their TOS. They floated it out there. They had all kinds of different terms in there that would lead to the confiscation of your money. They saw the reaction of people, and people got stuck on the spreading of news misinformation. Everyone got stuck there, and then PayPal said, okay, that 2,500 for misinformation should not have gotten into the terms. That was a mistake. And then a couple of weeks later, when everything died down, they slid that $2,500 fine right back in the terms, but they took out the misinformation part, and now they're just going to stick with the other stuff, which is pretty much the same thing. Who's going to decide if messages are harmful or objectionable? I mean, you just might as well say once again, misinformation. If PayPal feels like you're spreading misinformation, I mean, very, very sneaky, very sneakily done by PayPal. Get off of PayPal. That's the only advice I can give. You don't have to take my advice. It's just an opinion. But God, that is terrifying to use PayPal and to know that at any time they can grab $2,500 from you just because of messages that you send that they feel are harmful. That is terrifying. And do I have another clown world? Yeah, I do actually. So Arestovich, the Baghdad Bob of the Ukraine regime, of the Zelensky regime, he was giving an interview the other day, and I don't know how old this interview was, to be quite honest. I think it was a fairly new interview, and I saw it on Inessa's Telegram channel. I think she actually put subtitles to the interview. But Arestovich was making the claim that Putin was losing so bad in the war in Ukraine that he's actually applied, not once, but I believe he said 3 times for asylum in China. And the 3rd time it actually was accepted. So basically, Arestovich believes that as the Zelensky war machine continues to win victory after victory, I don't know what victories he's seeing, but anyway, he believes that as the Zelensky machine continues to win this conflict, and as they get closer to marching on Moscow, and Zelensky gets closer to taking his seat at the Kremlin, he believes that Putin is going to make a beeline. He is going to run away to China and live his life in exile under the protection of the Chinese. That's according to Arestovich. Baghdad Bob, he is the Baghdad Bob of this entire Ukraine story, conflict, saga, whatever you want to call it, special military operation. Anyway, that's what he said. I'm not so sure when this interview took place, but I saw it the other day on Inessa's Telegram channel. I'll put a link down below to that as well. And you can check out the interview, the full interview with English subtitles. Anyway, I am going to leave it there, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. Look for us on ODYSEE, on BitChute, on Rumble, on Telegram. We are now on Rockfin as well. So you will find that link down below as a pinned comment. And Duran Shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. I am signing out for today. Take care.